In Texas, there are around like 11,000 occupational therapists. There are 3 million family caregivers. It's the opportunity to give people something meaningful to do. People were not meant to sit around and do nothing.
Right. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this very special episode of the CAREpreneur Show. My name is Chris Chana, and I have a special guest named Emilia Bourland from Texas. Well, I don't know if you're from Texas, but I know you graduated with a master's degree in occupational therapy from Texas Women's University. You are also a registered occupational therapist and have your certificate in home modifications. And you currently own Higher Standards in Caregiver Training. I look forward to hearing more about this journey of yours, so.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm super looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, I should start out with, are you still in Texas or have you moved?
Yes,
Okay.
I am still in Texas, and the weather is beautiful right now.
Awesome. Where at in Texas are you? I lived there for about 6 months.
Oh.
I was I couldn't quite do the beaches there, and I had a little taste of winter, but I'm a Florida boy at heart, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, winter in general usually only lasts like 2 or 3 weeks here. No, I'm up in the North Texas area. I'm in Dallas.
Okay.
I've been here for about 13 years now, I think, something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, we lived in Keller, and so that area for a little bit, and I worked in Colleyville, and my buddy worked in Southlake.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, we really enjoyed it. Texas had so many amazing things, from the food it was a massive downtown area between Fort Worth and Dallas. I remember every time I got in the car, I felt like we had to go on a trip. It was like a 30-minute ride to go to the store,
Oh,
Everything.
yeah. My husband and I have a joke that you need to tack on at least 10 minutes to any amount of time that someone in Texas tells you it's going to take to go somewhere, because we only count freeway time as the drive. It's like,
Right.
It's like, if I say it's 20 minutes, it's really closer to 30, because I'm only thinking about the time that you're on the freeway for.
I love it. That's how I felt when I was there too. So, well, it's awesome. I love what you're doing. I feel like when I looked at your studio there, and I'm like, wow, like this is the exact setup we've always wanted to have for our own caregivers. And so I'd love to learn more about like how you ended up now kind of in the caregiver training space, but obviously you kind of have a background in actually, on the traditional occupational therapy side of things. So, share with me that story, because I can tell you're passionate about it, and I'm excited to learn how we got here today.
Yeah. Honestly, I never expected to be an entrepreneur. I never expected to do anything like what I'm doing right now. I spent most of my career as an occupational therapist in clinical practice, working everywhere from skilled nursing, long-term care, memory care, all the way up to the burn unit, ICU, lots of rehab, pretty much anywhere you can imagine. I had worked there and loved it. I love being a clinician. Like, I really, truly, I'm one of the fortunate people who feel like I really found my calling in life being an occupational therapist. This is what I was meant to do.
Did you know you wanted to do that like prior to going to school for that? Like, or did kind of you get led into that like while you were in school?
I had no idea what an occupational therapist even was. As most people, I'm sure, do. So to clarify, so occupational therapists, it is our job to help people do the things that they need and want to do under whatever challenges or circumstances they are facing. So those could be physical challenges, they could be cognitive challenges, they could be mental health challenges. So it's a really broad scope of practice, which is part of what makes it a really fun and interesting job to do, and also really fulfilling, because you get to help people in really meaningful ways to live the lives that they want to live. But like most people, I had no idea what an occupational therapist was. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology from UT Austin, and I was kind of looking. I knew I was going to go back to grad school, and I was kind of just like casting around for what I was going to go back to school for. And I knew that I love to solve problems. I love science, and I like to be creative. And I literally like just happened to hear my aunt say I was just eavesdropping. I'm just gonna I'll just put it out there. I heard her telling my cousin, well, we always need more occupational therapists in the world. And I was like, we do? What's that? And so, I went to the American Occupational Therapy Association website, and I read about it, and it was like light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I just never looked back. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to be an occupational therapist.
So like when you think about your journey in like the skilled nursing world, and kind of like maybe some of those other traditional occupational therapy roles, what was that like for you? How did you feel about being in that environment? I'm sure you being young and energetic, I mean, I can tell that you're very passionate about what you're doing. Was that hard to see some of these environments that you might see in a skilled nursing facility that may not be as desirable as like what you would want for maybe your seniors or those people that needed those services?
I always have kind of looked at those situations more as opportunities for me to advocate, or for me to, do my job and make a difference as best as I can. For me to educate.
And part of my like what I was thinking about when I was saying that is that sometimes what I see is that I see like these skilled nursing facilities that kind of like made occupational therapy or physical therapy as like an afterthought, and that might be my experience locally, where you have just an older building that was kind of like a traditional nursing home, and then it was converted into this like rehab area where they like split up the building, but then they didn't really give the therapy room what it deserves, or what I feel like I should have. Yeah.
I've worked in more than one like tiny dining room that was converted into like a therapy gym. In some ways, that's the great thing about being an occupational therapist, is because for me, my greatest tool is occupation. So
That's
I
true.
don't necessarily need like a lot of gym equipment. Exactly. The environment,
like
wherever people are living.
is a good, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're right.
That's the best place, but it can be really challenging. And definitely it was really building on those experiences, being in those settings and working one-on-one with family caregivers and professional caregivers in all of those settings, providing education and providing training in that kind of one-on-one format in my regular job as an occupational therapist. That was one of the things that eventually led me to where I am now.
So now, did you work in the Medicare home health side of things as well?
I have worked in home health. I've worked in there in home health from a Medicare perspective. I also worked in home health at the VA as part of their home-based primary care program, which is really, at least at North Texas, it was an absolutely fabulous program. So yeah,
Awesome.
I've been in those settings as well.
So now, is that kind of like the setting where you like helped educate the family members more so and then like maybe in the actual rehab skilled nursing environment, that's kind of like where you're working with caregivers?
No, honestly, I've provided family and caregiver education in every possible, I've done it. I've talked about wound prevention in the ICU with family caregivers. And, there's never a situation where education is not beneficial to whoever is there either providing care or witnessing the care, so that they at least understand, what's happening. So yeah, there's no limit on the places where I've provided caregiver education.
I love it. So I mean, I think what's so great about that is that you can just tell that you're so passionate about teaching and educating, whether it's caregivers or and I might have a different impression in my head, which I'm excited to kind of like see how you know have you clarify this for me. But when you think about when you took that big leap, what made you decide like, hey, I got my comfy salary, I got my comfy like setup over here. Let me go risk it all in my own thing, you know?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because especially because like I was actually in kind of my dream job when I decided to go out on this kind of crazy journey that I set out on. I was absolutely doing like incredibly uh, interesting, fulfilling work. I got to do a lot of different things with a lot of different kind of populations of folks. I was serving an underserved group of people, which is something that I'm super passionate about. And I loved the organization that I worked for. Like, they were amazing. And then I, so you're like, why would you leave that? And the answer is that, you know, you can only work in healthcare for so long, and it's so many different levels of healthcare before you really
Right.
start to see where, unfortunately, despite providers, like, despite our best attempts, there are just holes where people fall through the cracks in the system, and
Right.
where there are opportunities to really work more in a preventative model than in a reactive model. In a lot of ways, our medical model is very reactive. But there's so much, you know, there's just only so many times that you can see someone with a broken hip or a head injury, and you know that it didn't have to happen,
Right.
before
Right.
you say to yourself, I have the knowledge that it takes to actually help people stop this from happening in the first place.
Right.
What's my responsibility here to go and use that knowledge in a different way than I'm using right now? So when I
So
first left, it was mhm.
instead of being like that reactionary solution, you know, how can I be this proactive one, you know?
Exactly. So when I first left, that kind of traditional clinical setting, it was really to work in a preventative model to do things like home modification, um, and fall prevention, and to help people age in place so that they wouldn't end up in the hospital with these super preventable injuries.
Wow, man, it's exciting, man. I love it. I love it. So when you think about like you, because I love like higher standards in caregiver training. When I first think about that, I think about training our own home care employees or assisted living or even adult daycare team. So, but I have a feeling that you might be training not just professional caregivers, but maybe even family caregivers. Or is that like help and enlighten me to that world that you're venturing into?
Yeah, so essentially, um, so yes, absolutely. I have programs for both family caregivers, and I have programs for organizations and professional caregivers. Um, because basically the fact is, and the reason that I ended up kind of pivoting and going towards this kind of caregiver training model is being outside of the healthcare system and kind of outside of that bubble. I really
Right.
saw what it looked like in the real world for the caregivers who were out there trying to do this tremendously difficult job. And
Right.
like, let's not mince words. Being a caregiver, whether you're a family caregiver or you're a non-medical, you know, home care or assisted living, or, you know, whatever situation you're working in as a caregiver, it's a difficult job. There aren't often as many resources out there for those folks as everyone would like to provide. And, you know, we're asking people to do these difficult jobs a really with a really minimal level of knowledge and support. And so as
Right.
I saw more and more what that really looked like, and that there's a hunger in caregivers for better information, and kind of looking at a different model that I could actually serve them in that would be more accessible, and be able to provide a lot of caregivers a lot of high quality information versus just one-on-one. It just became clear that like that was the more impactful path to go down.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because every time I think about it, like when someone starts with us, you know, we have this like Care Academy program that they use. But like the part I hate about it is like the fact that it doesn't really give them the feeling or the sensation of like, what does it take, or what does it look like to properly like assist someone or lift them out of their chair or transfer them to another chair in the house or something like that. But just from like the wheelchair maybe to the dining room chair to the restroom, like, you have to have those experiences like in person to really know like what that's like. There's no online academy that can truly teach you how that works or how to properly do it,
Well, and it's really important that caregivers have the opportunity to have interaction,
Right.
through any kind of training process, because um, the fact is that in the real world, things don't always look perfect.
Yeah, it's
They
not black
don't
and
look,
white. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not black and white. It's not
Yeah.
black and white. And so what they really need is a way to come together with an expert and really think through and solve these problems and start thinking about these issues at a higher level. So it's not just like paint by numbers, because caring for people isn't paint by numbers.
Right.
It's complicated.
Yeah. Right. 100%. Now, so who's your like makes up your like target demographic? Like who do you feel like right now is kind of like your main focus as far as, is it professional caregivers, or is it the families at home taking care of their spouse or mom and dad, or
I don't think that one is necessarily a better market than the other for me, to be honest with you. And I say that because I think that there's such a huge benefit in serving both of those populations. Like if you think about it, so like I'll give you a numbers example. There are, in Texas, this is just in Texas, there are, I think, a little around like 11,000 occupational therapists. There are 3 million family caregivers. And
wow.
then however many millions of professional caregivers who are providing
Right.
non-medical care. So, I mean, the impact of providing high quality information and education to those millions of people, think about the potential impact in terms of the quality of life and the health and wellness of the folks that they're caring for, but also the health and wellness and quality of life of the caregivers themselves. If
Yeah.
we can teach them not just how to safely care for someone else, but how to do it in a way that's going to prevent injury to the caregiver.
Yeah. No,
The potential impacts of that just like boggle my mind.
100%. I mean, like we have an adult daycare center, and compared to like I feel like our home care and our assisted living, they kind of have a need, but they don't necessarily have the impact that I feel like our adult daycare has on our members, like both physically and cognitively. I feel like our adult daycare like transforms people. You give like 2 weeks in our program, they're like, walking better, their cognitive mindsets, and they're more clear. They can get in and out of vehicles easier. They're using their muscles so much better. But then like I sat there and I thought about like, man, can you imagine if like everyone could be exposed to something like that, where it's like you're almost in a way like subtly preventing them from like, from losing their cognitive abilities or losing their physical abilities. You're like delaying it, but like helping them to live this better life. But like I feel like the same thing what you're saying. It's like there's this massive preventative side, and it's like it never gets touched. It never gets the attention of insurance companies. It's like I would say the other thing that's probably hard, and maybe you can share like your experiences on this, is like helping the public or helping other people like see the value in it to make the phone calls to reach out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the challenge. Education is always the challenge,
Right.
right?
Yep.
I just want to touch on something that you said about what happens when people come to your center, because it's just, and there's actually so much research to support. I don't know if you're aware of not, there's a ton of research that supports what you're saying. And it's the opportunity to give people something meaningful to do, to
Exactly. Yeah.
give them
Yep.
purpose, to give them, people were not meant to sit around and do nothing.
Right.
we're
Yeah.
built
Well,
to be up functioning and doing, problem solving, and that's what gives us all purpose to get up every day,
right.
right?
Right. 100%. And that's like, what makes me so sad is I think about the 85-year-old, the 90-year-old who like lost his friends, you know, um, doesn't have a close, network of people around them, doesn't have anything to wake up and do in the morning other than their TV, And it's like, that makes me so sad to think about that person in that situation, Cause like, I hate the idea of like getting to that point in my life and feeling like, why am I even here?
Yeah, we need that's the purpose of occupation, right? We need
Right.
something meaningful to occupy our time. And I think
Right.
that's the beautiful thing about what you do is you give people that place and that purpose and that community, and it does help prevent, I'm certain of it, it helps to prevent all kinds of decline and issues, and even beyond just like the physical or the measurable cognitive effects.
So,
What does that do for someone's
right.
quality of life? Then their soul.
Right. Well, I feel like you're like venturing out in this totally new, like untapped world of like preventative like training. Like, do you feel that way? Or I mean, because I think what you're doing is essential, but I feel like the public doesn't know the value in it yet. Like they should.
Yeah, and that's essentially, I'm on an education campaign right now to
Yeah.
try and help people understand exactly that. And yes, I do feel right now like I'm out here on my own doing this. I don't think that will be the case forever.
No,
But
I think you're
I'm
spearheading this whole thing. Like this is awesome. I just like I feel like this next generation of baby boomers is hungry for information. They're the ones that are researching, going online, using YouTube, university. Like they're the ones that they want to know. They're not sitting here like, oh, I'll figure it out, or like like my grandpa's generation. Like they're like they didn't need any help. I'm fine.
mhm.
But this next generation, you can tell they're hungry for knowledge.
They're also, this is so funny because I had such a similar conversation before this today about how the generation of baby boomers who are starting to age into a place where they may start to need some care are so different from the generation that came before them. And we need to think as an industry about how we are adapting to providing services to this generation of people that really have different expectations. They have different standards and that are much more vocal and proactive about advocating for themselves. I think that's going to change things in this industry a lot.
For sure, for sure. No, I'm excited for what you're doing. I think there's yeah, I really think there's like just the sky's the limit, and at some point in time I feel like insurance at the end of the day, like the insurance company's biggest like the biggest person or the reason why they're saving money or and not having to spend money on additional services is the caregivers, you know it's like if the insurance companies didn't have that spouse at home or that adult child at home, there's no way that they would be able to afford or make this care affordable, or cover the types of care that they're trying to provide. Like it's that unpaid caregiver that's really holding the system together.
Oh, 100%. We are all standing on the shoulders of family and non-skilled caregivers. Like
Yep.
without them, the whole thing would collapse.
Props.
And
Yeah.
here's something even like just some more food for thought. What if we could these caregivers are incredibly powerful. They are the biggest influencers in the health outcomes of the folks that they're caring for. So, what if we could actually arm them with information that would keep people healthier and prevent common problems? Things like
Yeah.
wounds, UTIs, falls. Like these are things that we can really truly help prevent if we arm people with basic knowledge and don't take for granted that they either know or that they're just going to, do it for us.
Right. No,
Like this is an incredibly powerful group of people that we need to empower
yeah.
with the knowledge that they need, and the outcomes from that could just be like it blows my mind to think about it.
I couldn't agree with you more. So how do we get your word out more? How can we help?
Stuff like this is really, really helpful. You can also, I have a YouTube channel, Higher Standards Caregiver Training. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. On it, I have lots of caregiver training tips and education. I try to do kind of fun interactive things on there as well. So definitely subscribe to the channel. If you're here on LinkedIn, or if you're watching on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm putting out lots of education and tips all the time. I do lots of free educational events to kind of try and get the word out. And of course, anyone who is interested can also reach out to me as well. And of course, you can visit the website www.higherstandardscaregivertraining.com in order to check out some of the programming that's available there.
Well, I love it, Emilia. You're doing a great job. You're very well spoken, and I love the energy and the passion that you're bringing to occupational therapy and helping train caregivers, both professionally as well as those that are the families taking care of their loved ones. I mean, it's awesome what you're doing. More people need to be aware of it and understand how valuable it is.
Well, I thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. I really, truly, I am so passionate about this. For me, for anything to be like worth this crazy entrepreneurial journey, and I know what I'm talking about, Chris. Like it can't be really about money, can it?
Yeah.
It's gotta be about some higher purpose, or it's just not worth it at all. I'll go back to my dream job. Right. In that case, so, but no, thank you so much for having me on, and love the work that you do at Chelsea Place, making life meaningful for the folks that you serve.
Yeah, I love it. When you started talking about that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like we always talk about, like, how can we help our seniors, find a renewed sense of purpose and give them a meaningful life. And that's like, when I think about our adult daycare, that's what I strive for. So when you were talking about that, I was just like, you were like saying that exactly how I feel. It was just like coming out. I was like, I love this. It's really cool to be able to have that kind of an impact. So, but I can't thank you enough. We'll make sure we put all of your contact information below in the description. So people can find you, and keep doing the amazing work you're doing. Keep educating people, and we should keep kind of like pushing forward and helping people understand, that the services are available. I mean, we struggle with the same thing on our adult daycare, because it's this massive education. Just, people automatically assume home care, they assume assisted living, and they know those services. They don't know adult daycare. And so we struggle a lot with educating the public on what it is and how it can help them, so I totally can resonate there. And so I'm gonna continue cheering on that educational train, and making sure that we can ring that bell and make some noise to let people know what it is that you do, and the impact it's having on our senior population too. So I appreciate everything.
No, thank you so much for having me. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you. I had a great time. And I can't wait to see where the CAREpreneur show and Chelsea's Place go in the future. I'll keeping my eye on that too.
Awesome. Well, we got some new memorabilia coming too, some CAREpreneur memorabilia. So I have to, when it finally gets here, I have to make sure we send you one. So
yeah, for sure. I'll wear the T-shirt on my 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Emilia, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining us today. To learn more about Emilia and what she's doing with Higher Standards and Caregiver Training, please check out her information below. And Emilia, thanks again. You guys have a great day. And to all the other carepreneurs out there, keep making a difference in this world, and we see you on the next one. Hey guys, thank you so much for making it this far. If you'd like to watch last week's episode, click here. If you'd like to watch more exciting content on senior care, click here. If you'd like to learn how to open up your own adult daycare, assisted living, or home care agency, click here, chrischanna.com. This is for all those senior care entrepreneurs out there. And let's get back to work.